He stole her trust, her money, and her peace of mind. But what he didn't know was that she built the trap he walked into. The morning light filtered through gauzy curtains, casting pale golden streaks across the hardwood floors. Sarah Miller sat at the kitchen island of her meticulously organized apartment, sipping a cup of black coffee. Outside, the city buzzed with early commuters and delivery vans. Inside, the silence was pristine, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. She stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. Another notification blinked at the top. Fraud alert, $8,500 boutique deluxe Paris, France. Sarah didn't flinch. She smiled. This wasn't a surprise. It was a trap, and Ethan had walked straight into it. 7 years ago, Sarah met Ethan at a tech conference in Austin. She was a rising star in cybersecurity, young, sharp, and fresh out of MIT. He was working in marketing, smooth-talking and good-looking in a way that made people lean in when he spoke. He dazzled her. He listened. He spoke of dreams and futures. And when he proposed 2 years later under the flicker of fairy lights in Santorini, she said yes, but dreams lose their shine under the weight of reality. Ethan never held down a job for more than a few months. There was always a problem. An unreasonable boss, a lack of appreciation, and the market being wrong for his vision. He had ideas, so many ideas: apps, podcasts, real estate flips, crypto investments. Sarah tried to support him. She paid the bills, she covered rent, and she convinced herself that someday his potential would catch fire, until one night, it did in all the wrong ways. It was a Tuesday. Sarah had come home late from work, her head spinning from a security breach at a Fortune 500 client. She showered, slid into bed, and was out cold before her head hit the pillow. Ethan had kissed her forehead, whispered something about getting water, and left the room. He didn't know that Sarah's laptop open on the kitchen counter was tied to her department's dummy fraud program. A simulation for clients. A bait card, untraceable to her identity but fully active for monitoring. He copied the details, took photos with his phone, and returned to bed with a smug smile on his face. Wednesday morning, Sarah scrolled through her inbox while her coffee brewed. A string of fraud alerts pinged, each more extravagant than the last. 2-300 first-class flight to Paris. 1850 luxury timepiece Geneva duty-free. 4-500 Edel Saint Honor Parish. Blinked, set the phone down, and laughed. Ethan. She recognized his ego in the spending. Big, loud, careless. She opened a secure portal and flagged the charges, knowing they would be mirrored at Keller's desk within seconds. Agent Marcus Keller, a seasoned cybercrime investigator at the Federal Cyber Division, had helped Sarah design the training program last year. He knew the drill. The moment she clicked flag as simulated fraud, a red dot on Ethan's location appeared in the system. Paris. She could almost picture him in a crisp linen shirt, sipping champagne in a rooftop bar, telling some stranger about how smart he was. But this time, Sarah wasn't the one left cleaning up. She waited. Over the next 3 days, Ethan lived lavishly. Notifications painted a vivid picture. Michelin star restaurants, chaff out of town cars, hopping sprees through the morass, and each transaction was one more thread stitched into the net that would bring him down. Sarah hadn't called him. She didn't need to. He'd left a note on Thursday. Taking some time for myself. Don't wait up. Love you. She had framed it with her phone. Saved the image. Evidence.by Friday. Chloe arrived with a bottle of wine and a plan. Chloe Simmons was Sarah's best friend since college and is now her lawyer. The kind of friend who shows up with your favorite Thai takeout and a color-coded legal strategy. He's cooked, Chloe said, flipping through a manila folder stuffed with printouts. Keller's team is documenting everything. You want to move forward with charges? Sarah took a sip of wine, her eyes fixed on the latest alert. $12,900 jewelry. Place vend me. Absolutely, she said. But let's let him come home first. Sunday evening. The apartment door clicked open. Ethan strolled in, whistling some lazy tune. His sunglasses landed on the coffee table. His duffel bag, spilling with high-end logos, hit the floor with a thud. He turned to her, arms spread wide like a man returning from war. Thanks for the upgrade, babe, he said, grinning. Europe was exactly what I needed. Sarah didn't move. She stood by the kitchen counter, arms crossed, a slight smile tugging at her lips. What's so funny? He asked, pulling off his jacket. She shook her head slowly. Oh, Ethan, you have no idea what you've done. He blinked. Confusion danced in his eyes before being replaced by annoyance. Come on. Don't be like that. You could afford it. And look at me, I mean, seriously. Doesn't this suit scream success? It screams something, she said coolly. He sat on the couch, pulled out a gold watch, and held it up in the light. You should have seen Paris. The food, the women, I mean, the views, he corrected with a smirk. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You thought that card was a gift from me? You didn't say anything about it. I figured it was a little surprise. You've been working like crazy. I just assumed. You assumed wrong. She waited until he was in the shower before she opened her phone. The voice memo she'd started when he walked in was over 15 minutes long. Perfect. She texted Chloe. He's back. Ready to move forward. Chloe replied within seconds. Agent Keller on standby. Sending update now. Sarah stood in front of the mirror and studied herself. Her reflection showed a woman composed, calm, and no longer afraid. The knock on the door came. An hour later. 3 times. Firm, unapologetic. Sarah opened it to find Agent Keller and 2 uniformed officers. Evening, Miss Miller, Keller said, nodding. He's inside, she replied. Stepping aside, Keller turned to his team. Let's do this quietly. Ethan looked up from the couch, phone in hand. What the hell is this? He asked, standing up. Ethan. Miller, Keller began. You're under investigation for multiple counts of credit card fraud and unauthorized financial access. We'd like you to come with us. Are you kidding me? This is crazy. Sarah, say something. Sarah stood by the doorway, arms folded. Funny, she said. I thought husbands weren't supposed to steal from their wives. Guess we both learned something. Today, Ethan's eyes went wide as they cuffed him. You won't get away with this. Sarah smiled. Oh, Ethan, I already have. The night after Ethan's arrest was the first time Sarah had slept soundly in months. The apartment, once echoing with the tension of unspoken arguments and hollow reassurances, was now wrapped in silence, the comforting kind. She woke up with sunlight streaking across her face and the realization that she no longer had to pretend. Everything was fine. Her phone buzzed. Chloe. He's in federal holding. Keller says questioning begins at noon. Sarah took a breath, rolled out of bed, and made her way to the kitchen. The familiar scent of her dark roast filled the room. She stirred her coffee slowly, letting the warmth soak into her palms. The apartment felt new again, as if it had been purged of Ethan's toxicity overnight. Another message appeared. Chloe, we should meet this afternoon. Bring your copy of the recording. Sarah replied with a simple, see you at 3. Agent Keller sat in a small, windowless room with Ethan. The walls were a neutral beige, the kind designed to put people at ease while slowly breaking them down. Ethan looked less polished now, the tailored jacket replaced with a standard-issue hoodie, his arrogance swapped for nervous energy. You know why you're here, Keller said calmly, sliding a manila envelope across the table. Ethan opened it with shaking hands. Inside were screenshots of every fraudulent charge, time-stamped and GPS tagged. Accompanying them was a signed statement from Sarah and the voice recording, labeled Confession Evid 1223. This is absurd, Ethan muttered. She set me up. Keller didn't blink. You used a credit card registered to a cybersecurity firm. You took photos of the card from her laptop. You initiated every purchase. That's not a setup. That's a trail. Ethan leaned back, swallowing hard. We were married. Doesn't that count for something? Keller raised an eyebrow. It counts in court as motive. At p.m., Sarah and Chloe sat across from Keller in a downtown cafe. He tried to flip it. Keller said, sipping his coffee, claimed you authorized the card, but the recording kills that defense. And the fraud alerts align with GPS and his phone records. We're building an airtight case. Chloe handed over a flash drive. Every file we discussed, backed up on cloud storage too. Sarah remained silent for a moment, staring out the window at the pedestrians. What happens next? He'll be arraigned in 2 days, Keller replied. We're recommending charges for identity theft, fraud, and unauthorized access to a financial system. Sarah took a sip of her coffee. Will he serve time? That depends on whether he cuts a deal. Either way, he's looking at massive restitution and a record that won't be easy to shake. Chloe smirked. Bet that wasn't on his vision board. News of Ethan's arrest spread faster than Sarah anticipated. A former co-worker texted, then another. Mutual friends started calling, some in disbelief, others to offer apologies for ever doubting her. Nicole, the woman Sarah suspected had been involved with Ethan, posted a vague status on social media. Some people will use anyone for a ride. Grateful to be done with the drama. Sarah laughed for the first time in weeks. She spent the following days reclaiming her space. Ethan's belongings, what little remained, were boxed up and sent to his parents. She changed the locks, the Wi-Fi password, and unsubscribed from his endless list of streaming services. She also finally allowed herself the freedom to cry, not because she missed him, but because of the years she'd lost trying to carry a man who never planned to stand on his own. On the morning of the arraignment, Sarah stood outside the courthouse beside Chloe. A few journalists lingered near the entrance. Ready? Chloe asked. As I'll ever be, Sarah replied. They watched as Ethan was led into the courtroom in cuffs. He looked directly at Sarah. She held his gaze without flinching. The judge read the charges. Ethan pleaded not guilty. Chloe leaned in. That just means he's going to negotiate. Give it time. Later that evening, Sarah received a call from an unknown number. She let it go to voicemail, then checked the message. Ethan. Sarah, it's me. I messed up. I didn't mean for this to spiral like it did. I was just desperate. Please. We were a team once. Don't let it end like this. She deleted the message. That night, she opened a bottle of wine and sat on her balcony. The city sparkled beneath her. She was alone, but not lonely. There was a difference. A week later, Chloe called with an update. He's agreed to a plea deal. Avoids jail, but he'll be paying back every cent. 5 years of probation. Community service. His credit is ruined. Sarah exhaled. So it's done? Almost. You'll get the divorce papers by Friday. You're free, Sarah. She whispered the word after hanging up. Free. But as Sarah began to rebuild, something unexpected happened. One evening, as she sifted through archived emails for work, she found a forwarded thread. Subject: Ethan Miller offsite transaction partner from unknown at encrypted mail. Your blood ran cold. It wasn't over. Ethan hadn't been working alone. The glow from Sarah's monitor cast a pale blue light across the darkened office. Midnight had come and gone, but sleep was no longer an option. The forwarded email thread she found earlier still sat open on her screen, its cryptic subject line repeating in her mind like a pulse. Subject: Ethan Miller offsite transaction partner. Sender's domain encrypted mail. You wasn't associated with any company she knew. It was masked, anonymous, and intentionally designed to elude traceability. But Sarah wasn't just a cybersecurity expert, she was one of the best. She clicked the header, opened the metadata, and began unpacking the layers of encryption. Whoever sent this knew what they were doing. This wasn't some phishing scam. This was a deliberate breadcrumb left for her, line by line. She traced the IP to a cluster of private servers somewhere in Romania. It took her less than 5 minutes to crack the shell. Inside, she uncovered a series of data packets, transaction IDs, timestamps, and logs from Ethan's spree in Europe. Except these weren't from his Paris escapade. They were older, months older, hidden, linked to another dummy card. One she didn't recognize. The next morning, Sarah walked into Keller's office, the email printed and pinned inside a slim binder. I need you to see this, she said without a greeting. Keller raised his eyebrows and motioned for her to sit. She slid the binder across the desk. I thought we closed the book on Ethan, Keller said, flipping through the documents. I did too. Until I found this. There's another card, another fraud pattern, and it's tied to Ethan's credentials, but the money never hit our systems. It was funneled out and laundered offshore. Keller's face shifted from skepticism to concern. So this wasn't a one-time ego trip. No. Sarah said. It was a test run, and he had help. By noon, Keller had assigned a digital forensics team to comb through the metadata. A second name surfaced quickly. Brent Holloway, a former colleague from Ethan's short-lived startup 3 years ago. Brent had a minor criminal record for wire fraud and was known in the hacker community under the alias Holocode. Sarah blinked at the name. She remembered Brent charming, intense, a little too eager when they met at one of Ethan's networking mixers. She also remembered how Ethan insisted they stay in touch despite Brent's checkered past. Keller tapped the screen. We found Brent's digital signature buried in the code that rerouted the funds. This wasn't just fraud, it was an operation. Sarah crossed her arms, tension building in her chest. And Ethan was the face of it. The bait. That evening, Sarah met Chloe at a downtown bistro. She laid out everything: the email, the offshore funds, the discovery of Brent. Do you think Ethan would rat him out? Chloe asked, swirling her wine. Not unless he has to. But he doesn't know I found the email. Chloe smirked. Then we keep it that way. Let's build the trap before they realize they're still being hunted. Over the next 3 days, Sarah worked quietly with Keller's team. They monitored Brent's movements, both online and physical. He'd been traveling across Eastern Europe, conducting what looked like seminars on cryptocurrency, thinly veiled fronts for financial laundering workshops. Meanwhile, Sarah ran cross comparisons between Ethan's Paris spending spree and the earlier transactions Brent handled. The connection was clear. Brent built the infrastructure. Ethan ran the ops on the ground. But now, with Ethan facing restitution and community service, Brent had gone dark off the grid. Until one night, Brent resurfaced, not online, but in person. Sarah was walking home from the grocery store, the weight of her laptop bag pulling at her shoulder. It was late. Fog had rolled in, and the streets were quiet. She noticed him before he spoke. Tall, leather jacket, familiar posture. Long time, Sarah, Brent said, stepping from the shadows. She froze. I assume you got my little message, he said, hands in his pockets. Couldn't let you think it was all Ethan. He's a puppet. Never had the vision. You send that email? I did. You always struck me as the kind who wants the whole truth. So here it is. Ethan didn't just steal for himself. He was building a case, a scapegoat. And you? You were the insurance policy. Sarah's pulse quickened. What do you want, Brent? To finish what Ethan started, but smarter this time. Cleaner. I have a proposition. Join me. We could build something real. You have the skills. I have the infrastructure. No more 9 to 5. Just freedom. She stared at him, disgust blooming in her chest. You're out of your mind. He smiled. That's a shame. I'll give you time to think. Then he vanished into the fog. Sarah didn't go home that night. She went straight to Keller's. He made contact, she said, still shaking. In person. He wants me in. Keller nodded grimly. That's all we needed. He handed her a tiny microphone and a GPS clip. Next time he contacts you, we record everything. Sarah stared at the device. What if he's armed? Then we'll be listening. The city was humming with the low growl of traffic as Sarah sat in her apartment, the tiny microphone pinned under the collar of her blouse. Keller's team was parked 2 blocks away in an unmarked surveillance van, their eyes trained on her GPS feed and ears tuned to every breath. Her phone buzzed at precisely 8:07 p.m. Brent, meet me where it all began. 1 hour. The message was encrypted. She decoded it instantly. The rooftop of the Axis data center where Ethan had once pitched his first failed startup and where Brent had recruited him into their shadowy venture. Sarah changed into black jeans, a fitted coat and boots. She slid her phone into her pocket, checked the GPS beacon, and walked into the night. The Axis building loomed against the cloudy sky, a silhouette of glass and steel. Sarah took the service elevator to the top floor, her heart pounding in sync with the whir of its ascent. When the doors opened, the rooftop was quiet. The wind whipped against her face, and she could hear the hum of nearby power generators. Brent was waiting. He stood near the edge, hands in his coat, eyes scanning the skyline. You came. You made it hard to ignore, she replied. Brent motioned to the space beside him. Ethan was supposed to bring you here, sell you the dream. But he got greedy, short-sighted. Sarah stayed back. What dream? Financial independence through fraud? No, he said smoothly, building a system that evades control. Once the world isn't ready to stop, you and we could own the map, not just play on it. You mean laundering stolen money and destroying lives? Brent smirked. Everyone's destroying something, Sarah. We just get paid for it. She didn't flinch. You talk a lot, but let's see if you're as smart as you think. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Sarah stepped forward. You left a trail, Brent. Every offshore account, every dummy transaction. I traced it all. Ethan's mistakes? They were noisy, but you're a ghost with fingerprints. His jaw tightened. Careful, he warned. You don't want to provoke me. I'm not provoking, she said. I'm stalling. The rooftop door burst open. Agent Keller and his team swarmed the area. Weapons drawn. Red and blue lights flooding the rooftop in dizzying pulses. Brent stepped back, panicked. You set me up. No, Sarah replied. You set yourself up the moment you underestimated me. Brent was cuffed, read his rights, and escorted to a waiting car. As they disappeared into the street, Sarah stood alone on the rooftop, the wind tugging at her coat. Keller joined her. You okay? She exhaled. Not sure, but I will be. You just dismantled an international laundering ring. I just wanted my life back, she whispered. He nodded. Well, you've got it. 2 months later, the case against Brent Holloway and Ethan Miller became national news. Sarah's testimony became a benchmark in digital forensics training. She was offered a promotion, a speaking tour, even a book deal. She turned them all down. She wanted peace. She moved to the Pacific Northwest, bought a small house nestled among evergreens, and opened a boutique consulting firm for women-owned tech startups. One spring morning, she sat by the fireplace, sipping coffee, a golden retriever asleep at her feet. Her phone buzzed, a news alert. Brent Holloway sentenced to 12 years in federal prison, cooperated in testimony against Ethan Miller. She smiled. Closure. Ethan was sentenced to 3 years. Not much, but enough. He had written her another letter from jail, a meandering mix of apologies, justifications, and blame. She tossed it into the fire without opening it. Years later, Sarah gave a TED Talk titled The Firewall Within. She didn't name names, but she spoke of trust, deception, and the silent strength it takes to walk away and build again. In the crowd, young women sat on the edges of their seats, inspired, and as Sarah looked into the lights, she realized something simple but profound. She was no longer defined by betrayal. She was defined by what came after.